Welcome back to Sunday Supplement. Australia are on the verge of winning the second test out in Brisbane. They require another 8 runs to win with 8 wickets in hand. Jonathan, I know some of the papers were predicting a very quick demise for England this morning. I mean, they did put up a little bit of a fight, force Australia into bat again, but another sorry sight for England fans.
They showed a little bit of fight this morning, Stokes and Jacks. Like, I think they scored at less than 3 and over, which is, I think, is the sort of resolve and resilience that a lot of England fans wanted them to show earlier in the series. The question is why it's taken so long. I mean, Marcus Trescothick, the batting coach, came out and said an extraordinary thing yesterday that they hadn't discussed the issue of driving on the up at Perth. They weren't going to change the way they played. They weren't really, going to be too curious about how they'd got out. I think it's just a huge opportunity missed. I don't really feel like rageful or angry. I just feel like it's a really disappointing, and I think that it's shared in Australia as well, where they were really looking forward to a proper contest. It may well come to pass. I think if England win one, they could very easily go on a run, just as they did in 2023 at home. But I think from what we've seen so far, it's a team that ultimately has been a lot of style and not much substance. This has been a recurring theme of the Bazball era. Lots of interest, lots of tickets sold, lots of column inches generated, but they have not won the big series because they've not won the big moments, because they haven't been smart enough to play their way through those big moments. And
that doesn't make you angry?
But it does a little bit. I mean, I've been screaming at the TV screen for a lot. But I think when the dust settles, I think we'll just look on the series like a massive missed opportunity.
But the dogma of Bazball is, I find it. I'm trying to think of another comparison in another sport.
It's handball. It's basically
the tennis players play the same on clay as they do on grass. No. The golfers, the F1 drivers drive the same in the wet as they do in the dry. No. The golfers approach greens in the same way when it's wet. The football teams adapt to their opponents. Of course they do. So why is Bazball so dogmatic, so rigid, so impervious to any extraneous circumstances outside of the England dressing room?
I think it helps to see it not so much as a game plan or a cricketing strategy, as it's a mindset. So I think the thing about practice, they basically say to players, you look after your own game, right? We're not going to be dogmatic about how you practice, but you come up with you come up with a strategy to bat, or to build an innings, or you come up with a strategy to take 20 wickets. And I think that they give players a certain empowerment to do that. Now, I think part of that is you have to see Bazball as a kind of reaction to like the misery, frankly, of the COVID era, where and particularly that last Ashes tour in 21-22, which players speak about as a genuinely traumatic experience. And so, I think it's not so much it's not so much a strategy. Obviously, it's manifested itself in high run rates and entertainment and whatever. But I think it's a way of trying to make Test cricket fun for the players again. And
it's fun for Australia.
It's fun for but they've said right from the start it's not ultimately tied to results. So I think you have to say it's more of a branding exercise than anything. And I think that's the sadness of it.
Michael Vaughan's come out and said he thinks this could be a traumatic experience for these players. I mean, how do you see?
Well, it might. I mean, it might. I don't think they don't seem too perturbed. Jofra Archer had a pillow. He brought a pillow to the ground yesterday.
Steve Smith has just hit a 6, and it's over. By the way, Jonathan. So it is officially over now. They've won by 8 wickets, and they lead the series 2-0. Just, you're talking about Bazball there. The Observer says another collapse and Bazball is reduced to little more than a rumour. However, in that session earlier on today, it was possibly everything that Bazball wasn't. It was patient, it was flexible, it was disciplined. So does that make you happy or disappointed because of what might have been?
They've knuckled out. I think, they've played a lot of stupid shots this series, but I think the real failing actually has been the attack. I think that much vaunted attack, the 5 pacemen at Perth, and they bowled way too short in the 4th innings at Perth. arguably this Test match was lost in the two sort of opening sessions on days 2 and 3, when Australia just accumulated, and England kept trying to bomb them, and that is not a smart strategy either. I think 200 in Perth was not more than enough, but they should have made a much better fist of defending that. They put 340 on the board in the first innings here. That should have been more than enough to bowl at. So I think. We look at loose shots and we look at, catches in the infield, but I think, the bowling attack also has to look at itself, because I think they went away from their plans as well.
It's 2-0 now, 3 Test matches to go. England knew, Dan, that coming into this, they had to win 3 Test matches. They've just got to do it the hard way. Is this over, or do you have reasons to be optimistic, particularly given what we saw earlier on today? I know we're trying to grab at the small positives here.
Yeah, well, it's not over. England have still got 3 Test matches. They could still win it 3-2. But to your point, it's very hard to be optimistic, I think, given what we've seen. Let's not forget, this isn't even a full-strength Australia side. They've got players to come back in. It feels like they've got tweaks they can make to suit the conditions. Nisa was obviously an example of that. And England don't feel like they've got much in reserve. So it's very hard to be optimistic. I think I used the word brittle earlier about Liverpool. I think the same about this England team. It was great that we're still able to talk about it now, and it's only just ended. I didn't expect that to be the case. I thought I'd wake up this morning and England would have lost that test. So they've shown a bit of resolve.
Brilliant. What a high bar that is.
But as soon as
it wasn't over when I woke up.
Well, that's kind of where we are, isn't it? But as soon as Jacks was out, there was another quick collapse, and it feels like that has also been a kind of theme of these first 2 tests.
James, if it is to get even worse and it becomes a 4-0, maybe even a 5-0 to Australia, what next for England? For Stokes, for Rob Key, for Brendan McCullum? Is that era gone? Do they move on from that?
I think if they lose 5-0, it's very difficult to defend Brendan McCullum and Bazball, because it's all geared towards the Ashes, is it not? I mean, the whole point of these cycles is to make England competitive down under. I've been reading pieces all year about how they've been planning for that 5-man pace attack, and that they were going to be able to take a form of cricket down under and compete and not wilt under the pressure, which is what they've done. And look, I understand the point about the mentality and empowering the players, and I have to say I don't fault them for a lack of effort. I don't think they've not tried in this series. I don't think they've given up. I don't think it's anything to do with that. They play such stupid cricket. They don't assess. The game management doesn't exist. You're talking about Australia digging in and batting. One of the reasons they were doing that is because they knew they wanted the new ball under lights. These day-night matches are quite tactical in terms of the phases of play. England don't think that way. When England were batting quite well this morning, and Stokes and Jacks were putting those runs on, I was thinking, why did so many of them give away their wickets last night? Why do you not just knuckle down, put the drive away, driving on the up? Everyone says in Perth and Brisbane you don't do that. What are they doing? Drive on the up, getting out. Put that shot away until the morning, when the sun's out, the conditions are easier, the ball is softer, and then you can start playing your shots, and then you can be more aggressive. They can do it, but they've done it too late in this Test match. And understanding those moments of when to switch it on and when to turn it off, and not just saying Bazball is a mindset that we have 100% 24/7. It's a recalibration they need. And if they can't do that, then the architect of that has to pay the price for it.
Easy. This is ultimately how it's going to be judged, right? They got smashed in India. They look like they're going to get smashed here. They didn't beat India or Australia at home. These are the big series, and I think there is. I take James's point. There is only so far you can say, well, okay, this has been a really fun process. Ultimately, cricket is not a men's mental health cult. It is a results business. So I think ultimately, it's hard. I mean, just on the question of McCullum, he's now the white ball coach as well, and England are now building towards the 2027 World Cup. So do you then cut short that process? That's quite an awkward one. I think Stokes does go at the end of this series. Maybe not for good, but I think he does take a bit of a step back.
Could it be argued that they've changed the face of Test cricket, though, Dan, a little bit with their approach? I know it might not have been as successful as they would have wanted, but I'm looking at people who have got maybe a passing interest in Test cricket. They might have been drawn in by these tactics.
Well, I think I should defer to Johnny on this one because I'm not an expert on Test cricket, but I do have a passing interest. So I'll say I've really enjoyed the process of Bazball. You know, there have been some incredible Test matches, you know, over the last few years. But I think, you know, these guys are spot on when they say, you know, it is a results business, and it looks like England are on the cusp of another kind of humiliation down under, and that doesn't seem sustainable to me.
Yeah, it's a results business, and at the moment it is not looking good for England. Australia have just won the second test at the Gabba. They have taken a 2-0 lead in this Ashes series.